welcome to day 3. It's wild to believe we're already halfway through the week part of the challenge. So I will say that today will be a little bit lighter than the last 2 days. I also hope that this video will be a little bit shorter than the last 2 days to give you a bit more time to actually start exploring and editing and getting familiar with the details of your story. So in days 1 and 2, you spent time just getting your story out of your head and onto paper or a laptop or your phone, and just going through that process of just first and foremost acknowledging that you have a story, acknowledging that you have numerous stories, acknowledging that you are both living, shaping, and reacting to that story. And that's a lot. And then yesterday it was kind of filling in the gaps, thinking about the things that perhaps are over rehearsed versus those things that perhaps we unknowingly or knowingly omit. But again, really it was about just bulking up that story. So hopefully you have some stuff that when I say your story, or when I talk about your library, or we talk about your stories, there's a bit more going on. You've got something to play with, something to explore. And that's really what we're going to be doing today, is going in, looking at what you've already written down and starting to poke at some of the details. And I really like today. I like today's questions. I like today's prompts. I find it a little bit more fun and just interesting and insightful. And this is the kind of day where, please, if there are realizations, surprises, funny things that come up, please email us, because we'd love to know how the challenge is going for you, or DM us on Instagram. Because we are going through it too. So if you did the extra homework yesterday, which was on the email, I asked you to think about your favorite story that's a film, your favorite story that's a book, and your favorite character. And I know those questions are often quite tough because I feel like very few have one specific, because I feel like films and books and characters often correlate with where you're at in the season, which is kind of why I ask you. But I find that it's interesting to look at those, and again, it's very chicken and egg. And this isn't something I'm saying from research, this is just something that's been going on and I've been thinking about as we've been building out this challenge, which is just, again, starting to become aware of the patterns, influences, correlations between how we think about ourselves, how we see ourselves, the story we create for ourselves, and then everything else going on in the world, and the media that we're exposed to, and the films that we gravitate towards, and the books that we read. As when I was going through this, I realized that, and again, this is front of mind because it's something that recently I've been teased about a lot by my friends, which is my love for just like cheesy rom-com romance. Like if I have an evening to myself and I can pick any genre of film, it's probably going to be a cheesy, tacky rom-com. And so what's interesting is the first few times I did this exercise of writing down my story and thinking about key themes, I realized that if I was thinking about the genre of my story, a lot of it would be romance, which is interesting, but also when you think about it, kind of not, because I feel that for a lot of women, we are conditioned and we are brought up to really celebrate and want romance, you know, like finding the love, finding the one, for a lot of us has been heralded as the main thing that we need to do. And so we experience and we think about our story through that lens of when I'm with a partner, when I'm single, when I'm changing myself to be worthy for whatever it is. That was something that came up for me, which I found very interesting, because again, chicken and egg, it's like, well, no, not really. I mean, it's film first, isn't it? Probably. It's like, I've been conditioned on the romance. That's what feels safe. That's what feels comfortable. That's what I see value in. And then funny how I then subconsciously am potentially shaping my story and my life around those things. And since doing this work and checking in and doing this exercise at different points in my life, that has started to shift just because of my awareness of it. But it's why I asked you the question, and it's why if you didn't do it yesterday, I ask you to do it today, is just spend some time thinking about the books that you love, or the films that you enjoy to watch, or the characters that you see yourself in, the ones that you're rooting for. And then just have a look at your story and your stories and your plot lines, and just interrogate maybe where there's similarities, where there's differences, and I guess form your own opinion or opinions on why you think that might be. So it's kind of along that line today. It's just, I don't know, I love it. It's just like prompts. It's funny. I find it fun. It's almost looking at your story in the same way that you would look at a film that you love. And you'd see the plots and you'd see the genre and you'd see the characters and you'd see the hero or heroine or villain or best friend, and actually applying that lens to your own story. So I've got my notes here again because I want to make sure that I list the questions. These will be in the email as well. But just whilst I have you, I figured I'd tell you about it on the call. So again, ideally 30 minutes. If you have more time, amazing. If it's something you want to come back to, amazing. I'm going to give you a selection of questions. If you don't have the time, you do not have to answer all of them. Go with the ones that are calling to you or excite you the most or potentially challenge you the most, because there's something there. But really what I want you to do is just start editing. Start going in and picking at your story and asking yourself why you think that is the way that it is. And did you choose that? Or do you think somebody else has been co-authoring that part? And that's really what we're going to focus on tomorrow, is the impact, the deeper, sometimes more insidious role that ideologies, messaging from society, from communities, from parents, carers, friends can come in and shape our story without us really realizing it. So today we're just picking at some of the details. Tomorrow we'll be going a little bit more into some of the themes and the messages and how that actually shows up in our life and how it shapes who we are and what we believe about the world. But a few questions for you to sit with today when I stop talking. First, what would the title of your story be? And again, interpret that question however you like. It could be the title for the full overarching story that we talked about in day one, or it could be the title for the season that you're in right now or the season that you're moving into. Again, go trust yourself. Whatever comes up, however you interpret that, sit with that. Question 2, if your story was a genre, what would it be? And so when I say genre, I mean things like, would it be a romance? Would it be a comedy? Would it be a thriller? Would it be a horror? Would it be an action? Would it be fantasy? Would it be sci-fi? Like, think about all the different genres and what feels good to you. And again, trust your gut. This might not be an intellectual question. It might be a gut feeling that you might not be able to rationally explain, but just go with it. What genre is your story? And again, it could be overarching story, or it could be the season that you're in right now. So if you were to split your core story into key chapters or components, or perhaps turning points where things changed, where the story changed, where the dynamic or the energy changed, what would they be? And again, go with what feels right for you. So some people might do it in terms of kind of chronological order. So it might be age-based, it might be moving from school to college, university, moving out. Some people might do it based on the themes we talked about, things like romance or career or family or spirituality. You might kind of do your chapters like that. And other people, it might just be about key moments that something happened in your life where things changed, or if you had a challenge or an obstacle that you had to overcome, and then what was on the other side of that. So again, go with the format that feels right for you. But really what I want you to do is look at the story that you were crafting the last couple of days and start to put it into chunks. Question 4, are we at 4? Who are your major characters? So who are the Ron and Hermione that are kind of by your side and been with you for the full journey? Who are the people that just come in for a season, perhaps to teach you something, perhaps to give you a challenge that you need to overcome or a lesson that you need to learn? Do you have a villain? Is there someone that has been in your story at numerous points causing issues, shall we say? Who are the characters? Whether it's the family dynamic, the friends, the partners, the colleagues. Who are those characters? Where do they sit? How do they play in your story? Getting on to you. How have you cast yourself? And again, this is what's really interesting when you think about the characters that you resonate with in books or films or television series. Who are you as a character? And the big thing I'm getting at is, would you root for you? So are you cast in your own story as, are you the hero? Are you the villain? Are you the underdog? Are you the damsel, the victim, the Scrooge, bad person turns is good, good person turns bad? Like, who are you? How have you cast yourself in your story? And are there seasons where, again, you potentially lost your way and then found it again? Right now, are you in a season where you are fighting back? You know, those Rocky style montage where you're doing all the things to get you to the place that you need to get to? Or is this the season before that, where actually things are kind of feeling hard and confusing and shitty, to be honest? So where is your character right now? How would you describe it? Would you root for them? What do you imagine the audience is feeling about them if there was an audience watching? I think they're all the questions. Double check the email, because the team will have everything down. But essentially, go with what sticks out, go with what you have time for, but the aim and the objective is to start pulling apart your story and seeing it in a potentially more manageable, accessible way than just the big overarching, like, what is my story? And again, tomorrow we will be building on it a little bit more. And so I'm going to round it up with a piece of research or another quote that I found that I find really interesting. So research shows that how we tell the story of our lives is actually more meaningful than what actually happens to us. So let me just repeat that. So essentially, the story we tell and how we tell it is more impactful than what actually happens. And this links back to kind of what we were talking about on day one, which is this idea that the same thing could happen to two people, but it could result in two very different stories and two very different outcomes. And what research has found is that the way someone experiences an event, the way someone makes a story up or tells a story can have huge implications on their happiness, on their anxiety, on their stress levels. And it being that people that are able to handle hard times or people that are able to build resilience are often people who have had hard things happen, but have been able to tell a story about it that doesn't completely, deplete them of their power, of their agency, of the control that they have. They're able to still feel gratitude for the things that they do have, versus perhaps people who may have had some struggles, but have a tendency to catastrophize or see the bad or over dramatize the bad things and are unable to see the good things. And so again, it's just that acknowledgement. It's not a judgment. It's not necessarily shame. It's just you sitting with yourself and being honest and asking yourself and spending time thinking about the story you tell, whether you tend to tell negative stories that rid you of your agency, of your power, of your control, or if you are able to tell stories that acknowledge the bad. They don't bypass the hard things that happen, but they still cast you in a light where you feel like you have the power, the community, the support, the means to continue building a story in a life that feels good and works for you. So that is day 3. As always, DMs are open, emails are open. We hope you're enjoying this as much as we are, and we will see you tomorrow.